So this is part 2 of our design strategies related to fall prevention. We are at the Northern Wake Senior Center facility, and this is a recent project, so it's going to have the most recent codes implemented as far as design for designing for fall prevention, and be up to date as far as all the accessibility codes and everything else. But in contrast to residential design, there's things that are similar, but also things that are different. And we're going to go through some of those design features that we implemented here. These are also things that you can take into consideration if you go out in public and you're using other types of facilities. Things to look for, things to think about, and things to watch out for to prevent falls. We are in the multi-purpose room, and one of the things that we took into consideration for this project was the flooring. We wanted to make sure that all the flooring had a high, what's called in the commercial world, slip resistance coefficient, which is basically a factor that determines how slippery the floor itself is. All the flooring throughout this facility has a texture to it, and it's actually an embossed texture on this floor. We have different looks as far as the materials, but it's very, it has a higher tread to it as far as your resistance to your foot slipping on it. On this floor, in this room, we've actually got 2 different colors of material. One that looks kind of gray like a stone, and it bumps right up against a vinyl wood plank tile. One of the things that was really important during this project was that we minimized transitions between materials. So we had different looking materials, but the transitions or thresholds at the doorways, for instance, it's a continuous surface. So, and then even where we had something like a grate here or an outlet cover, we wanted to make sure that there wasn't too much of a transition between whatever was in the floor versus the flooring material itself. In older buildings where you have older materials and buildings that aren't necessarily up to code, this could be more of a problem as far as your transitions being more of a bump between materials, for instance, at doorways. And it's just something to be aware of. You should always take into consideration, as you're going from space to space, if there is a large gap in materials at the doorway, just to keep that in mind. So let's talk about some of the materials that we used. You can see from these samples, these are the actual materials that we used on the floor. These all are relatively low profile as far as their thickness. These are the wood singles that we used in the lobby. You can see if I put them side by side, they're the same thickness. This is by the same manufacturer, which always helps. But as we transition to, for instance, the tile in the classrooms or the tile in this multi-purpose room, it's the same thickness as well. So even though we have a different appearance in the materials all coming together, the fact that they're all the same thickness really helps to minimize transitions. And the other thing we took into consideration too, which helps with slip resistance and falls, is a lower glare factor. We wanted the flooring to be muted enough that it wasn't going to have a high reflective value with the lighting above. We boosted the lighting throughout the facility, which was great, but for instance in this room, instead of doing the white color on the floors, we actually went with the gray to minimize glare. And then even in the classrooms, for instance, we have the carpet, but you can see this is a little bit thinner carpet than what you may be used to in your home. It doesn't have a high pile to it. It does have a cushion back to it, which is nice. But when you put it up against the other flooring material, there's really not much transition, which was helpful too. Here in the entrance vestibule for the facility, we decided to go with a carpet tile that is a little bit different than regular carpet that you might see in other types of facilities or even in your own home. This is called walk-off tile. This basically cleans your feet as you walk in, so if you're tracking in rainwater, dirt, ice, whatever on your feet, Within about 6 to 10 steps between the door and the flooring on the interior of the building, your feet should be relatively clean by the time you get inside the building itself. This is going to help minimize falls as well. This has good traction to it, even when it's wet, and you know, we have a lower threshold too going into the facility, so this was a consideration for us and an important design feature as you walked into the building. We are in one of 2 movement studios in the facility. This is the Fitness A room. One of the main considerations for this space was the flooring in here. We wanted to be sure that the floor was going to perform at a very high level for the activities that were going on in here related to fitness. This is an actual sample. You can see the cross-section of this floor that we chose. The nice thing about this floor is that it's cushioned, shock-absorbing acoustical foam that actually reduces fatigue and reduces strain on your lower extremities, minimizes slipping and stumbling, and it minimizes certain injuries. We went with a higher quality floor in this space because all those things were super important for the activities that were going to be going on in here. As you can tell, when you actually walk on it or jump on it or dance or whatever the activity is, it has really good shock absorption, and it's still relatively quiet in here in spite of it being a hard surface. The floor itself is actually embossed too. It has a slight texture to it. It's like a puckered texture, and that's going to help with slip resistance as well. We're in one of the other multi-purpose rooms in this facility. This was actually one of the spaces, a few spaces, that we left pretty much with the existing finishes remaining. In this room, you can see the VCT. It's called vinyl composition tile. This is pretty standard flooring in a lot of facilities. You'll see this pretty much anywhere you go. Schools, hospitals, a lot of older buildings utilize VCT because it's inexpensive, easy to install, and it wears really, really well. The only downside is when we talk about falls related to this material is that it can get very slippery depending on how glossy or how much of a shine they put on this tile, especially when it's wet. So one thing to just take into consideration is if you are going to be walking over this type of surface, be aware of whether your feet are wet or you're coming in from a wet surface to the dry floor, for instance, because this floor is not going to have as much slip resistance, like we talked about before, as other types of flooring. One of the things we did in this project to help with falls and fall prevention was to boost the overall lighting levels. If any of you remember the old facility, it was fluorescence and was, pretty good ambient lighting, which is overall general lighting. When we redid the facility, we really boosted the ambient lighting throughout with new LED fixtures, but we also added accent lighting around the perimeter of this room, for instance, with the spotlights, wall washers in hallways, and under-counter task lighting in some of the rooms, which provide different layers of lighting, which will help with falls because they're going to specifically help with the tasks that you're doing in each space. Another thing we took into consideration was we added solar shades on the windows. We get a good amount of natural daylight. We actually increased the natural daylight in this facility, but we added these shades which allow light to still come through and has some opacity to it. So it allows filtered light, which actually helps with the glare, as you can see, when the sun is coming right in through the windows. Another consideration that we did to help with the glare outside is we added metal awnings over the top of each window to kind of filter the light coming directly in through the windows. So access in and out of the building is important to think about to get in and out safely without falling. We have ramps that we added to this building. They have to be at a certain grade, and handrails on either side for safety. And the parking lot When we were planning this space, one of the programming requests was for a handrail in this space. We added a very strong handrail that's actually round, as we talked about in the home video, that this allows for easier grip. But one of the considerations that people don't often think about with handrails is the color. This back plate on the handrail is a color that's slightly darker than the wall itself, but we wanted to make sure that people would see the handrail. So we went a shade darker on the handrail so that there is more contrast between the handrail itself and the wall color, so that if you're following, you can easily see it and grab onto it. We are at the coffee bar area in the main lobby, and I wanted to talk about how we decided to address the design of this area in terms of fall prevention. One of the things that we've talked about is eliminating upper cabinets, which is what we did here. By not having upper cabinets, we are minimizing forward reach and the risk for falls. We decided to do something more artistic here, and we did a really pretty stone backsplash with an acoustical treatment above that looks kind of like artwork, but serves a purpose as well. Underneath the counter, we decided to try and maximize storage as much as we could. We did really deep drawers for storage of all of the coffee essentials and supplies, and these drawers easily slide in and out and provide tons of storage, and you really don't necessarily miss the overhead cabinets.
We are in the family restroom, and I wanted to show you some really good examples of handicap accessible design that you're going to find in more modern buildings that are more up to code. But things to consider and look for instance, if you're going to a fitness facility or a hotel or motel, and you need to think about these things as far as fall prevention. One of the things that we showed in our last video was we have grab bars around the toilet area, and we've got lots of floor space to be able to navigate onto and off the toilet. This toilet is ADA height, which means it's slightly higher than your standard toilets. We've also got clear floor space in front of the sink to be able to navigate easily. This will also help. You can have surfaces to grab onto. There's a rim around the edge if you need to hold on to it, for instance. As you get over into the shower, one of the things that we've talked about is having a curbless shower, which means not having a curb or a bump here to have to step over. This has a slight ramp to it, transitioning from the shower out to the bathroom floor, but it's easy enough that if you're in a wheelchair, you can actually roll into the shower. This is all pretty level, and inside the shower, we've got plenty of grab bar space, plenty of room to navigate. It's a pretty wide shower, but as you can see too, as you get into the shower, the fixtures that we selected for in here, the architect did a really nice job selecting fixtures that allow for full accessibility. We have a shower seat here that can be put up or down. You can actually put toiletries on here. If you get tired, you can sit on the seat and still have, within your controls right here within arm's reach. There's a hand shower, adjustable shower here that's actually mounted to another grab bar, which is nice. All your controls. We have a regular shower head up here. So this is just a really nice setup for accessibility and something to think about, as you look at other facilities or hotels, or you're staying in other types of spaces that are more commercial.
We took extra care in selecting the furniture for this seating area in front of the center. One of the things that we wanted to make sure of was that the seat height was higher than standard seat height. A lot of times seats range about 17 or 18 inches. We actually asked the seating manufacturer to add another inch of foam in the seating to raise it to 19 inches. 19 inches is easier for people to get in and out of the chairs, and we went one additional step and added arms on some of the pieces to help with that too. This is one of the arts and crafts classrooms, and one of the things that we took into consideration when we designed the furniture for this room, and all the classrooms actually, was the ease of use in setting up and breaking down the rooms. These rooms get a lot of programming needs throughout the day as far as being set up in different configurations. So we wanted to eliminate falls by having furniture that could be easily rolled, and the tabletops actually fold, tilt upward like this one, and the tables can nest together to be more compact. But having them be able to roll eliminates lifting and stacking the tables, which is going to help prevent falls.